The apple tree. A long time ago, there was a huge apple tree. A little boy loved to come and play around it every day. He climbed to the treetop, ate the apples, took a nap under the shadow. He loved the tree, and the tree loved to play with him. Time went by, the little boy had grown up and he no longer played around the tree every day. One day, the boy came back to the tree and he looked sad.
Come and play with me.
The tree asked the boy.
I'm no longer a kid. I don't play around trees anymore.
The boy replied,
I want toys. I need money to buy them.
Sorry, but I don't have money. But you can pick all my apples and sell them. Then you will have money.
The boy was so excited. He grabbed all the apples on the tree and left happily. The boy never came back after he picked the apples. The tree was sad. One day, the boy returned and the tree was so excited.
Come and play with me.
The tree said,
I don't have time to play. I have to work for my family. We need a house for shelter. Can you help me?
Sorry, but I don't have a house. But you can chop off my branches to build your house.
So the boy cut all the branches of the tree and left happily. The tree was glad to see him happy. The tree was again lonely and sad. One hot summer day, the boy returned and the tree was delighted.
Come and play with me.
The tree said,
I am sad and getting old. I want to go sailing to relax myself. Can you give me a boat?
Use my trunk to build your boat. You can sail far away and be happy.
So the boy cut the tree trunk to make a boat. He went sailing and never showed up for a long time. Finally, the boy returned after he left for so many years.
Sorry, my boy. But I don't have anything for you anymore. No more apples for you.
The tree said.
I don't have teeth to bite.
The boy replied.
No more trunk for you to climb on.
I am too old for that now.
The boy said.
I really can't give you anything. The only thing left is my dying roots.
The tree said with tears.
I don't need much now, just a place to rest. I am tired after all these years.
The boy replied.
Good.
Old tree roots is the best place to lean on and rest.
Come sit down with me and rest.
The boy sat down and the tree was glad and smiled with tears. This is a story for everyone. The tree is our parent. When we were young, we loved to play with Mom and Dad. When we grew up, we let them only come to them when we need something or when we are in trouble. No matter what, parents will always be there and give everything they can to make you happy. You may think the boy is cruel to the tree, but that is how all of us are treating our parents. Chapter 1: A Simple Life. Once upon a time, in a small rural village in ancient China, Old Man Li and his son, Jun, lived simple lives. The village, nestled among lush fields and breathtaking mountains, was a peaceful haven where everyone worked the land and enjoyed the natural beauty around them. In the heart of the village, Old Man Li and Jun's small wooden house stood with its thatched roof, surrounded by fertile fields ready for planting. Each morning, as the sun's rays touched the dewy grass, Old Man Li and Jen would rise and begin their daily chores. Old Man Li was a wise, gentle man with a long, white beard that flowed like a waterfall down his chest. Despite his age, he had bright, twinkling eyes that seemed to see the world's hidden secrets. John, on the other hand, was a young, energetic boy, eager to learn from his father and help out in any way he could. One day, as they tended to their fields, Old Man Lee took a break from his work, wiping the sweat from his brow. He looked at John and said,
My son, remember, life is like these fields. Sometimes it may seem barren and difficult, but with patience, care, and a positive attitude, it will bloom and bear fruit.
John listened attentively, absorbing his father's wisdom.
Yes, Father.
He replied,
I will always try to see the good in everything, just as you do.
As they continued their work, the other villagers went about their daily lives. Children played by the river, women washed clothes, and men worked in the fields or crafted tools for the village. It was a close-knit community where everyone knew one another and supported each other through thick and thin. One evening, as the sun began to set, Old Man Lee and John sat on the porch of their house, enjoying a steaming bowl of rice and vegetables. They watched the villagers return to their homes, with laughter and cheerful conversations echoing through the village.
Father,
John asked,
how do you always remain so calm and wise, even when things don't go as planned?
Old Man Lee smiled at his son, his eyes filled with warmth.
John,
He replied,
the secret lies in understanding that life is full of surprises. Some may seem good, some may seem bad, but in the end, all is well. It is up to us to find the silver lining in every situation.
John nodded, taking his father's words to heart. Together, they enjoyed the peaceful evening, ready to face whatever life had in store for them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the village settled into a serene slumber, the stage set for the events that would soon unfold and test the wisdom of Old Man Lee and the resilience of John. Chapter 2: The Escape. One bright morning, as Old Man Lee and John prepared for another day of work in the fields, they noticed something amiss. Their only horse, a strong and loyal creature named Bao, was missing from his stable. The wooden gate had been left unlatched, allowing Bao to wander off during the night. John's eyes filled with concern as he turned to his father.
Father, Bao is gone. How will we plow our fields without him?
Old Man Lee, however, remained calm. He placed a reassuring hand on John's shoulder and said,
Do not worry, my son. All is well. Who knows if it is good or bad?
Together, they set out to search for Bao. As they walked through the village, they informed their neighbors of Bao's disappearance. The villagers offered their sympathy and joined in the search, scouring the surrounding fields and forests for any sign of the missing horse. Despite their best efforts, they could not find Bao. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the village. Tired and disheartened, the villagers returned to their homes, leaving Old Man Lee and John standing alone in the fading light.
Father,
said John, his voice trembling.
what will we do now? We have no horse to help us with our work, and our fields will suffer.
Old Man Lee looked at his son with a gentle smile.
John, remember what I told you before. All is well. Who knows if it is good or bad? Sometimes, when things seem dark and uncertain, the world has a way of surprising us.
The villagers, overhearing Old Man Lee's words, shook their heads in disbelief. They couldn't understand how he could remain so calm and optimistic in the face of such misfortune. As the days went by, Old Man Lee and Jun continued their work in the fields, doing their best without the help of Bao. Their neighbors often stopped by to lend a hand or offer words of encouragement, but they couldn't help but feel pity for the father and son. One evening, while Old Man Lee and Jun sat on their porch, they noticed a cloud of dust rising in the distance. As it drew closer, they saw a group of wild horses galloping toward the village, with Bao leading the way. The villagers gathered to witness the unexpected turn of events, their eyes wide with astonishment. They congratulated Old Man Lee and Jun on their newfound fortune, exclaiming,
You are so lucky. Now you have not just one, but many horses to help you with your work.
But Old Man Lee simply smiled, his eyes twinkling with wisdom.
All is well. Who knows if it is good or bad? Remember, my friends, life is full of surprises, and things are not always as they seem.
As the villagers looked on in wonder, they couldn't help but marvel at the serenity of Old Man Lee in the face of uncertainty, a lesson they would soon come to appreciate even more. Chapter 3: A Herd of Horses. With Bao and the wild horses now grazing in a makeshift enclosure near Old Man Lee's home, the villagers couldn't help but marvel at the father and son's incredible luck. They gathered around the fence, excitedly chattering about this sudden turn of events.
Old Man Lee, you are truly blessed.
One villager exclaimed,
These wild horses will surely bring prosperity to your family.
Old Man Lee smiled kindly at the enthusiastic villager.
Thank you, my friend. But remember, all is well. Who knows if it is good or bad? Life is unpredictable, and we must always be prepared for whatever it brings.
Meanwhile, Jun observed the wild horses with fascination, noting their strength and beauty. He felt a sense of excitement and responsibility, knowing that taming these horses could greatly benefit his family and the village. One day, as Jun approached the enclosure, he shared his thoughts with his father.
Father, I believe I can tame these horses. With their help, we can plow our fields faster and assist our neighbors in their work. Our village will prosper.
Old Man Lee nodded thoughtfully.
It is a noble goal, John. But remember, be patient and cautious. These horses are wild and untamed, and we must approach them with respect and understanding.
Jun agreed, and over the next few days he began the process of taming the horses. The villagers watched in awe as he slowly gained their trust, feeding them, grooming them, and eventually leading them around the enclosure. As the days went by, Jun became more and more confident in his abilities. He decided it was time to attempt to ride one of the wild horses. Selecting the strongest and most spirited horse, he approached it with determination.
Today is the day, Father.
Jun declared.
I will ride this horse and show the village that we can work together with these magnificent creatures.
Old Man Lee looked at his son with a mix of pride and concern.
Be careful, John. Remember, all is well. Who knows if it is good or bad? Trust in yourself, but also trust in the wisdom of the horse.
With the entire village watching, Jun carefully mounted the wild horse. At first, it seemed as if he had succeeded. The horse stood still, allowing him to sit atop its back. But suddenly, it reared up, bucking and kicking wildly in an attempt to unseat its rider. Jun clung to the horse, doing his best to calm the frightened animal. But in a swift, unexpected movement, the horse threw him off, sending him crashing to the ground. The villagers gasped in horror as they saw Jen lying motionless, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. Old Man Lee rushed to his son's side, concern etched on his face. He gently cradled Jen in his arms, checking for any other injuries. The villagers gathered around, offering their help and expressing their pity for the unfortunate accident. As they carried Jen back to their home, Old Man Lee's voice remained steady and calm.
All is well. Who knows if it is good or bad?
He repeated, though his eyes betrayed a deep worry for his son's well-being. The villagers couldn't help but wonder at Old Man Lee's unwavering serenity even in the face of such adversity. And as they returned to their own homes, they couldn't shake the feeling that there was still much to learn from the wise old man. Chapter 4: A Broken Leg. As word spread of Jen's accident, the villagers came to visit, bringing food, medicine, and kind words. May, a kind-hearted girl from a neighboring farm, arrived at Old Man Lee's home with a basket of fresh herbs to help soothe Jen's pain.
Thank you, May.
Old Man Lee said gratefully.
Your kindness is a gift to us all.
As the days went by, Jen's leg began to heal, but the pain was still intense, and he struggled to adjust to his newfound immobility. He felt a deep sense of guilt for his impulsive actions and worried that he had brought misfortune upon his family.
Father, I am sorry.
Jen said one day, tears welling up in his eyes.
I should have been more careful. Now I cannot help you in the fields, and our family will suffer.
Old Man Lee sat down next to his son, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder.
John, remember what I always say, all is well. Who knows if it is good or bad? Life is full of twists and turns, and we must learn to accept them with grace.
The villagers, too, couldn't help but discuss John's accident.
What a terrible turn of events,
said one.
Just when they had such good fortune with the wild horses, John goes and breaks his leg.
Another villager nodded in agreement.
Old Man Lee's words seemed to ring true. Who knows if something is good or bad? Life can change in an instant.
As John continued to recover, he spent his days watching his father work tirelessly in the fields. Old Man Lee's unwavering determination inspired him to look for ways to contribute despite his injury. He began carving intricate woodwork to sell at the market, using his artistic talents to support his family. One day, as Old Man Lee returned from the fields, he found Jen deep in concentration, working on a beautiful wooden sculpture.
Father, look.
Jen said proudly.
I may not be able to work in the fields right now, but I can still help our family in other ways.
Old Man Lee's eyes shone with pride as he admired his son's handiwork.
John, you have learned an important lesson. Life may present us with challenges, but it also gives us opportunities to grow and adapt. Your resilience is a testament to the strength of your spirit.
Just as the villagers had grown accustomed to the rhythm of their lives with the wild horses and Jen's injury, news arrived that a neighboring kingdom had started a war. Fear and uncertainty swept through the village as they prepared for the inevitable conscription of their young men. As the village braced for the impending conflict, Old Man Lee's words echoed in their minds.
All is well. Who knows if it is good or bad?
And as they faced the challenges ahead, they began to understand that the wisdom of Old Man Lee's philosophy extended far beyond the simple life they had known. Chapter 5. The Onset of War. The news of the war brought fear and anxiety to the village, as families prepared to say goodbye to their sons and brothers who were to be forcibly conscripted into the army. Mothers wept, and fathers gave solemn advice to their young men, hoping they would return home safely. Jen, still recovering from his broken leg, watched in sadness as his friends and fellow villagers gathered at the center of the village. The village elder addressed the young men with a heavy heart, reminding them of the importance of courage and unity in the face of adversity.
Stay strong, my sons.
He said, his voice trembling with emotion.
Protect each other and never forget the love and strength of your village.
As the young men prepared to depart, Jen's best friend, Feng, approached him, concern etched on his face.
John, I wish you could come with us. I'm scared. Feng admitted.
Jen looked into his friend's eyes, remembering Old Man Li's words.
Feng, all is well. Who knows if it is good or bad? Be brave, my friend. I believe in you.
Feng nodded, tears streaming down his face, and embraced Jen before joining the others as they marched away from the village, leaving behind tearful families and an uncertain future. As the weeks turned into months, the war raged on, and the villagers received devastating news of the battles and the loss of many young lives. Old Man Li continued to work the fields, and Jun, now able to walk with a slight limp, returned to help his father. The village was solemn, but Old Man Li's quiet strength and wisdom provided a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. When the villagers gathered to share news and memories of their fallen sons, Old Man Li would remind them.
All is well. Who knows if it is good or bad? We must remain strong and support one another.
One day, as Jun and Old Man Li worked side by side in the fields, Jun asked,
Father, do you truly believe that good can come from such terrible events? How can we find peace when so many of our friends are gone?
Old Man Li paused, leaning on his hoe.
John, life is filled with both joy and sorrow. We cannot always understand why things happen, but we can choose how we respond to them. We must focus on the love we share and the memories of those we have lost. In doing so, we honor their sacrifice and find the strength to carry on.
As the war continued, the village took solace in Old Man Li's words, drawing strength from his wisdom and the bonds they shared with one another. Chapter 6. Lessons in Resilience. As the war continued, the villagers faced their own battles. Crops suffered from drought, and many families struggled to make ends meet. The village's spirit, once vibrant and full of life, now seemed as fragile as the leaves that fell from the trees. Old Man Li, sensing the villagers' growing despair, decided to hold a gathering in the village square. With Jun by his side, he addressed the crowd, his voice steady and full of wisdom.
My dear friends, we have faced many hardships together. It is in times like these that we must remember the power of resilience and the importance of maintaining a positive attitude.
Jun, standing beside his father, nodded in agreement. He shared his own story of overcoming adversity, recounting the day he broke his leg and how his father's wisdom had helped him cope with the pain and frustration.
My father's words have guided me through the darkest times, and I am grateful for the lessons I have learned. Although I was spared from the draft, I have come to understand that every challenge we face holds a valuable lesson.
The villagers listened intently, their hearts stirring as they recognized the truth in Jun's words. May, a young woman who had lost her brother in the war, spoke up.
Old Man Lee, your wisdom has comforted us all. But how can we find the strength to carry on when our hearts are so heavy?
Old Man Lee smiled gently at May.
My dear child, you have already shown great resilience in the face of such loss. The strength lies within each of us, waiting to be discovered. When we choose to see the silver lining in every situation, we find the power to overcome even the most difficult challenges.
As the gathering continued, other villagers shared their stories of loss and perseverance, finding solace in each other's experiences. The words of Old Man Lee and Jen resonated with each of them, sparking a newfound sense of hope and determination. In the days that followed, the villagers began to put Old Man Lee's teachings into practice. They banded together, helping one another in the fields and offering support to those who needed it most. As their collective resilience grew, so too did their sense of community and unity. John marveled at the transformation, realizing the profound impact his father's wisdom had on their village. He felt a deep sense of gratitude and pride, knowing that the lessons he had learned from Old Man Lee would stay with him for a lifetime. Chapter 7: Embracing Uncertainty. As the seasons changed and life in the village carried on, the people continued to face new challenges and uncertainties. But instead of succumbing to fear and despair, they embraced Old Man Lee's teachings, approaching each situation with open minds and positive attitudes. One day, while Jen and his friend Joe were tending to the fields, a sudden storm rolled in, threatening their crops. Xiao looked up at the darkening sky, worry evident in his eyes.
John, what if the storm destroys our harvest? Our families depend on these crops.
John, recalling his father's wisdom, smiled reassuringly.
Xiao, do not worry. All is well. Who knows if it is good or bad? Perhaps the rain will bring much-needed nourishment to our fields, and the crops will grow even stronger.
Xiao, inspired by Jen's words, nodded in agreement.
You're right, John. We must remain positive and embrace the uncertainty.
In the days that followed, the villagers witnessed the truth in Jen's words. The storm had indeed brought much-needed rain, and the crops flourished as a result. The people rejoiced, grateful for the silver lining they had found in a seemingly negative situation. With each passing day, the villagers' resilience and optimism grew stronger. They learned to rely on one another, sharing their struggles and successes, and supporting each other through the twists and turns of life. Old Man Lee watched the transformation of his village with pride and contentment. He knew that his teachings had taken root and that the people he loved would continue to find serenity in the silver linings of life's uncertainties. One evening, as the sun set over the lush fields and the villagers gathered to share a meal, Old Man Lee stood to address them.
My dear friends, I am humbled by the strength and unity you have shown in the face of adversity. Remember to always cherish the silver linings and embrace the uncertainty that life brings. In doing so, you will find peace and happiness.
The villagers listened intently, their hearts full of gratitude for the wise old man who had guided them through life's storms. As they looked around at their thriving village, they knew that the serenity of the silver lining would forever be a guiding light in their lives.
Chapter 1: The Legends Lore. Mist rolled over the Scottish Highlands. weaving through the craggy hills and sweeping along the shores of Loch Ness. The ancient waters, calm and mysterious, stretched out as far as the eye could see. Fiona MacLeod stood on the edge of the loch, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her red hair whipped around her face as the wind picked up, carrying the scent of damp earth and the whispers of legends long past. She felt a thrill of excitement coursing through her veins. She was finally here, ready to uncover the truth behind the legend that had captivated her since childhood. As she approached her research station, a cozy wooden cabin nestled among the trees, Fiona met her assistant, Ian, a local lad who shared her passion for unraveling the mysteries of Loch Ness.
"You made it, Fiona,"
Ian exclaimed, his Scottish brogue thick with enthusiasm.
"I've been looking forward to working with you on this project. Maybe we'll be the ones to finally prove Nessie's existence."
Fiona smiled, her green eyes twinkling with determination.
That's the plan, Ian. I've spent years studying marine biology and researching legends of mysterious creatures in bodies of water around the world. But Nessie has always been the one that fascinated me the most. I truly believe there's something in these waters, and I won't rest until I find it.
As they settled into the cabin and began to unpack their equipment, Fiona shared stories of the Loch Ness monster with Ian, recounting the tales she had heard as a child and the various sightings that had fueled her passion for uncovering the truth.
My grandmother used to tell me stories about Nessie when I was a wee lass.
Fiona recalled, a wistful smile on her face.
She said that Nessie was a gentle giant, a guardian of the loch who watched over its waters and the people who lived nearby. I always thought there was something magical about those stories, something that made me feel connected to this place and its history.
Ian nodded, his eyes filled with wonder.
The legend of Nessie has a way of capturing the imagination. But it's not just about magic and mystery. It's also about the rich history of this land and the generations of people who have lived and died here, passing down their stories through the ages.
Fiona agreed, her resolve to uncover the truth behind the legend stronger than ever.
That's why we're here, Ian. We're not just searching for a mythical creature. We're searching for a piece of our history, a connection to our ancestors, and the key to understanding the secrets hidden beneath these waters.
As the sun dipped below the horizon and the loch was bathed in an eerie twilight, Fiona and Ian prepared for their first night of research. Little did they know that their quest to uncover the truth behind the legend of Nessie would lead them on an adventure filled with danger, discovery, and the power of friendship. Chapter 2: Shadows Beneath the Surface. The sun had barely risen over the Scottish Highlands, casting a golden glow on the still waters of Loch Ness. Fiona and Ian were up early preparing their research equipment for a day of exploration and discovery. As they set out onto the loch in their small research boat, Fiona felt a mixture of excitement and anticipation. She couldn't help but imagine what secrets might lie beneath the murky depths.
"What's our plan for today, Fiona?"
Ian asked, his eyes scanning the surface of the water for any signs of the legendary creature.
We'll start by taking water samples and analyzing them for any unusual biological activity.
Fiona explained.
Then we'll use our underwater cameras and sonar equipment to search for anything out of the ordinary.
As the day wore on, Fiona and Ian diligently collected data and observed the mysterious world beneath the loch's surface. While they hadn't found any definitive proof of Nessie's existence, Fiona was confident that they were on the right track. It wasn't until late in the afternoon that their efforts finally paid off. As Fiona was reviewing the footage captured by their underwater cameras, she noticed something peculiar.
Ian, come take a look at this,
she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. Ian peered over her shoulder at the monitor, where a blurry image of a large, serpent-like creature with a long neck and a humped back was visible.
Could that be?
Ian began, unable to finish his sentence as excitement overtook him.
It's not conclusive,
Fiona cautioned.
but it's definitely something we've never seen before. It could be a new species, or even an undiscovered population of an existing species. Either way, we need to study it further and protect it from any potential harm.
Determined to learn more about the mysterious creature, Fiona and Ian spent the following days mapping its movements and studying its behavior. They discovered that the creature seemed to be a gentle, elusive being, avoiding human contact and living peacefully in the depths of the loch. As Fiona and Ian continued their research, they couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and responsibility. They knew that they had stumbled upon something truly extraordinary, and it was up to them to ensure the safety and preservation of this magnificent creature. Meanwhile, word of their discovery had begun to spread throughout the local community, attracting the attention of an unscrupulous businessman named Malcolm Stone. Driven by greed and the prospect of personal gain, Malcolm set his sights on capturing the mysterious creature and exploiting its existence for profit. Unaware of the threat that loomed on the horizon, Fiona and Ian continued their mission to study and protect the enigmatic creature that had captured their hearts and the imagination of people around the world. Chapter 3: Greed Takes Root. In a lavish office overlooking the city, Malcolm Stone sat behind his imposing mahogany desk, skimming through the latest reports about the mysterious creature in Loch Ness. Malcolm was a shrewd businessman, always on the lookout for opportunities to capitalize on the public's fascination with the unknown. The legend of Nessie presented the perfect chance to make a fortune, and he was determined to seize it. Malcolm's assistant, a nervous young man named Thomas, entered the room clutching a stack of newspapers.
"Sir, these just arrived."
Thomas said, laying the newspapers on the desk.
"The story about the creature in Loch Ness is on the front page of every one of them."
Malcolm smirked, tapping his fingers on the desk.
"Excellent! The more attention this story gets, the more valuable our prize will become. We need to move quickly, Thomas. I want you to gather a team of experts to help us capture the creature. And remember, this must be done discreetly. We can't afford any interference from those meddling researchers."
Thomas nodded, making a hasty exit to carry out Malcolm's orders. As he walked down the hallway, he couldn't help but feel uneasy about their plans. But he knew better than to question his boss, a man known for his ruthlessness and determination to get what he wanted. Back on the shores of Loch Ness, Fiona and Ian were hard at work, gathering more information about the creature they had discovered. They had affectionately nicknamed it Nessie, in honor of the local legend, but they were careful not to reveal their findings to the public just yet. As they returned to their research station one evening, they found a group of strangers lurking near their equipment. Suspicious, Fiona approached them.
Excuse me.
She said, trying to sound as assertive as possible.
Who are you, and what are you doing here?
The strangers exchanged glances, clearly caught off guard. One of them, a man with a thick beard and piercing blue eyes, stepped forward.
"We're wildlife enthusiasts.
He stammered.
Just here to see if we can catch a glimpse of the famous Nessie."
Fiona raised an eyebrow, not entirely convinced.
Well, this is a restricted area. I'm afraid you'll have to leave.
The strangers reluctantly agreed, retreating back into the shadows. But as they left, Fiona couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. That night, Fiona and Ian discussed their concerns over dinner.
I don't trust those people.
Fiona admitted.
I think they might be after Nessie.
Ian frowned, sharing her worries.
We need to be careful, Fiona. If our discovery falls into the wrong hands, there's no telling what could happen to Nessie.
Unbeknownst to them, Malcolm Stone was already putting his plan into motion, determined to capture the creature and exploits the legend for his own gain. The stage was set for a showdown between those who sought to protect the secrets of Loch Ness and those who would stop at nothing to profit from them. Chapter 4: Unveiling the Hidden World. In the days that followed, Fiona and Ian spent every waking moment studying the creature they had discovered. They had managed to collect underwater footage, revealing more details about Nessie's appearance and habits. It seemed to be a gentle, elusive creature, preferring to dwell in the depths of the loch. As Fiona analyzed the data, she grew increasingly fascinated with the underwater ecosystem that Nessie called home. It was a hidden world, teeming with life and largely untouched by human activity. Fiona was determined to protect this fragile environment and its inhabitants, including the mysterious Nessie. Meanwhile, Malcolm Stone's team of experts had arrived at Loch Ness, armed with cutting-edge equipment and a plan to capture the creature. Malcolm himself had taken up residence in a luxurious cabin near the loch, overseeing the operation from a distance. One day, while Fiona and Ian were conducting their research, they stumbled upon the remnants of a campsite. Fiona's heart raced as she recognized the symbols on the discarded equipment. They belonged to Stone Enterprises, Malcolm's company. She knew his reputation and understood the danger he posed to Nessie.
We need to do something, Ian.
Fiona whispered urgently.
We can't let them capture Nessie and exploit her for their own gain.
Ian nodded, his expression grave.
But what can we do? They have more resources and manpower than we do.
Fiona paused for a moment, deep in thought. Then her eyes lit up.
We need to learn more about Nessie's habitat and her behavior patterns. If we can discover her hiding places and her means of communication, we might be able to protect her.
Over the next few days, Fiona and Ian worked tirelessly, gathering information and observing Nessie's movements. They discovered a network of underwater caves and tunnels, which seemed to provide the perfect hiding place for the creature. They also noticed that Nessie appeared to communicate with other creatures in the loch using a series of low-frequency sounds. As Fiona and Ian prepared to implement their plan to protect Nessie, Malcolm's team was growing increasingly frustrated. Their attempts to capture the elusive creature had so far proved unsuccessful. Malcolm was growing impatient, demanding results.
Time is running out.
He snarled at Thomas, who was relaying the latest report from the team.
We need to capture Nessie soon, or our window of opportunity will be lost.
Back at the research station, Fiona and Ian had devised a plan to keep Nessie safe. They would use underwater speakers to mimic Nessie's communication sounds, luring her away from Malcolm's team and into the safety of the hidden caves. As they set their plan in motion, they knew that the stakes had never been higher. Would their efforts be enough to protect Nessie and her hidden world from the greed that threatened to destroy them? Chapter 5: Collision Course. Fiona and Ian's plan to protect Nessie was in full swing. They had positioned the underwater speakers strategically, using them to emit low-frequency sounds that mimicked Nessie's communication patterns. As the sounds echoed through the loch, they hoped to draw Nessie away from Malcolm's team and into the safety of the hidden caves. Meanwhile, Malcolm's frustration had reached a boiling point. Despite his team's best efforts, they had yet to capture the elusive creature. Determined to see results, Malcolm decided to take matters into his own hands, joining the search efforts in person. As Fiona and Ian watched from the research station, they saw a group of men, led by Malcolm, approaching the loch. They knew that a confrontation was inevitable.
Let's go.
Fiona whispered, her voice firm.
We can't let them capture Nessie.
Ian nodded, and they made their way toward Malcolm's group. As they approached, Malcolm caught sight of them and halted his men.
Well, if it isn't Fiona McLeod,
Malcolm sneered.
the so-called expert on Loch Ness. What brings you here?
Fiona's eyes narrowed.
You know exactly why we're here, Malcolm. We won't let you capture Nessie and exploit her for your own selfish gains.
Malcolm's laughter rang out across the loch.
You think you can stop me? My resources and my team far outnumber anything you can muster.
Ian stepped forward, his voice steady.
We know more about this creature and its habitat than you ever will. We won't let you destroy the delicate ecosystem of Loch Ness just to line your pockets.
Malcolm's expression darkened.
You're fools if you think you can stand in my way. Nessie is the key to a fortune, and I won't let anyone, especially not you two, keep me from it.
Fiona's heart raced as she realized the true extent of Malcolm's plans. He wasn't just after Nessie, he intended to exploit the entire loch and its inhabitants for profit. She knew that they had to stop him, no matter the cost.
Listen, Malcolm.
Fiona said, her voice steely.
You may have money and power, but you don't have the knowledge and understanding of this place that we do. We will do everything in our power to protect Nessie and the loch.
Malcolm scoffed.
We'll see about that.
With that, he turned and signaled his team to continue their search. Fiona and Ian exchanged worried glances, knowing that the battle to protect Nessie was far from over. As the two sides continued their efforts, one to capture Nessie and the other to protect her, it became clear that the fate of the creature and the loch hung in the balance. The race against time had begun. Chapter 6: A Race Against Time. Fiona and Ian watched from a distance as Malcolm's team scoured the loch, armed with nets and sophisticated equipment. The two knew that they had to act quickly to protect Nessie from Malcolm's greedy clutches. In their research station, Fiona and Ian pored over the data they had gathered on Nessie and the loch's ecosystem. They noticed a pattern in Nessie's movements, suggesting that the creature was most active in a specific area during the early morning hours.
We need to be there before Malcolm's team arrives.
Fiona said with determination.
If we can guide Nessie to the hidden caves, she'll be safe from capture.
As dawn broke, Fiona and Ian set out on a small boat, armed with underwater speakers and a plan to outsmart Malcolm. As they neared the area where Nessie was most active, they deployed the speakers, emitting low-frequency sounds to attract the creature. Malcolm's team, noticing Fiona and Ian's movements, quickly closed in on their location. The tension in the air was palpable as both parties raced to reach Nessie first. Suddenly, the water began to churn, and the familiar, serpentine shape of Nessie emerged. Fiona and Ian exchanged excited glances. Their plan was working. As Nessie followed the sounds emitted by the speakers, Fiona steered the boat towards the hidden caves. But Malcolm's team was not far behind, their nets at the ready. The thrilling chase continued, with both parties getting closer to Nessie. Fiona and Ian maneuvered their boat expertly, leading the creature towards safety, while Malcolm's team pursued them relentlessly. As they neared the hidden caves, Fiona and Ian realized that the narrow entrance would be difficult for Nessie to navigate. They knew they had to act fast before Malcolm's team caught up. Ian plunged into the water, swimming alongside Nessie, and guided the creature towards the cave. Fiona watched anxiously from the boat, her heart pounding in her chest. Malcolm's team was closing in, their nets at the ready. Just as they were about to cast the nets over Nessie, the creature slipped into the hidden caves, narrowly evading capture. Ian emerged from the water, gasping for breath.
We did it!
He exclaimed, his eyes shining with relief and joy. Fiona grinned, her heart swelling with pride.
We may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. We need to keep Nessie safe and expose Malcolm's plans.
Chapter 7: Triumph of the Protector. Having successfully led Nessie to the safety of the hidden caves, Fiona and Ian knew they needed to outsmart Malcolm once and for all. They devised a plan to expose his nefarious intentions and protect the creatures of Loch Ness. The following day, Fiona approached Malcolm's team pretending to have a change of heart.
I want in on your plan.
She told them.
I've realized that there's too much money to be made by capturing Nessie.
Malcolm, his eyes gleaming with greed, agreed to let Fiona join his team. Little did he know, Fiona had a hidden camera, recording their every move and conversation. As Fiona infiltrated Malcolm's team, Ian continued monitoring Nessie's movements and documenting the creature's unique behaviors. Together, they gathered evidence not only of Malcolm's plot but also of the existence of a new species living in Loch Ness. With their evidence in hand, Fiona and Ian approached the authorities, presenting them with the footage of Malcolm's scheme and their groundbreaking research on the new species. The authorities acted swiftly, arresting Malcolm and dismantling his operation. Fiona and Ian's discovery made headlines around the world. The mysterious creature in Loch Ness was revealed to be a new species, one that had remained hidden for centuries. Fiona was recognized for her dedication to protecting the creature and her unwavering pursuit of the truth. At a press conference, Fiona addressed the gathered reporters.
The story of the Loch Ness monster has captivated our imagination for generations.
She said.
Today, we've not only uncovered the truth behind the legend, but we've also proven that the natural world still holds countless secrets waiting to be discovered.
With the threat of Malcolm neutralized, Fiona and Ian continued their research, determined to learn more about the amazing creatures living in the depths of Loch Ness. They knew that their work was far from over, as the new species would need ongoing protection from those who would seek to exploit it. The legend of the Loch Ness monster lived on, its allure stronger than ever, as people around the world marveled at the truth behind the centuries-old tale. Chapter 8: Consequences and New Beginnings. As news of Malcolm's capture and Fiona's groundbreaking discovery spread, the small town near Loch Ness became a hub of activity. Scientists, reporters, and curious tourists flocked to the area, eager to learn more about the mysterious new species that had once been thought to be the stuff of legend. Malcolm Stone faced the consequences of his actions. His business empire crumbled, and he was sentenced to serve time in prison for his attempts to exploit and harm the creatures of Loch Ness. As he was led away in handcuffs, he couldn't help but glare at Fiona, who stood triumphantly alongside Ian.
Your greed and selfishness have brought you nothing but ruin.
Fiona told Malcolm.
The natural world is not yours to exploit. It belongs to all of us and must be protected for future generations.
With Malcolm's threat neutralized, Fiona and Ian continued their research on the new species, affectionately dubbed Nessie by the townspeople. They worked tirelessly to study and protect the creatures, sharing their findings with the world and advocating for the preservation of Loch Ness and its inhabitants. As time went on, the legend of the Loch Ness monster continued to captivate the imagination of people around the world. The tale had evolved, now centered around the amazing creatures that Fiona and Ian had discovered and their ongoing efforts to protect them. One day, as Fiona and Ian stood on the shores of Loch Ness, they couldn't help but marvel at the journey they had been on. They had uncovered the truth behind the legend and had played a crucial role in the protection of the natural world.
I can't believe how far we've come,
Fiona said, smiling at Ian.
It's been quite the adventure.
He agreed.
But I have a feeling it's only just beginning.
Together, they gazed out at the tranquil waters of Loch Ness, knowing that the creatures they had worked so hard to protect were thriving beneath the surface. They felt a deep sense of responsibility, determined to continue their research and protect the wonders hidden in the depths of the loch. As they turned to leave, a ripple appeared on the surface of the water, and for a moment, it seemed as if something massive and mysterious was moving beneath the waves. The legend of the Loch Ness Monster lived on, a testament to the power of curiosity, perseverance, and the enduring allure of the unknown. Epilogue, echoes of the legend. Years had passed since Fiona Macleod's discovery of the mysterious creature in Loch Ness. She and Ian had established a research center dedicated to studying and protecting the loch's inhabitants. The once small town had grown, becoming a beacon for scientific discovery and a haven for those seeking to learn more about the natural world. Fiona and Ian often found themselves reflecting on the themes of their incredible journey: the pursuit of knowledge, the importance of protecting the environment, and the consequences of personal gain. They shared their experiences with the world, inspiring a new generation of scientists and conservationists to follow in their footsteps. One day, a group of school children visited the research center, eager to learn about the legendary creatures that called Loch Ness home. Fiona welcomed them with a warm smile and led them to a large window overlooking the loch.
As you explore the world around you, remember that there's always more to learn.
Fiona told the children.
The pursuit of knowledge is a lifelong adventure, and you never know what secrets you might uncover.
As she spoke, she couldn't help but think of her own journey and the incredible discovery that had changed her life. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility, knowing that her work would continue to inspire others for years to come. Later that evening, Fiona and Ian stood on the shores of Loch Ness, the setting sun casting a warm glow across the water. They marveled at the beauty of the landscape and the creatures that called it home.
Do you think there are still more secrets hidden beneath the surface?
Ian asked, gazing out at the loch. Fiona smiled.
I'm sure there are. The world is full of mysteries just waiting to be discovered, and it's up to us to keep searching for the truth.
As they stood there, hand in hand, a ripple appeared on the surface of the water, and the silhouette of a creature briefly emerged before disappearing beneath the waves. The legend of the Loch Ness Monster continued to thrive, a reminder that the world was filled with wonder, and that the quest for knowledge was an adventure without end. The story of Nessie's secret concludes here, leaving behind a legacy of curiosity, determination, and the importance of protecting the natural world for generations to come.
Chapter 1: A Life of Hardship. Once upon a time, in the magical realm of Etheria, there lived a young boy named Jack Everhart and his widowed mother. Their small, cozy cottage was nestled among the hills, surrounded by a lush forest teeming with mythical creatures. Although the world around them was brimming with enchantment, Jack and his mother faced daily struggles as they tried to make ends meet. With Jack's father gone, their only source of income was a gentle cow named Milky White. She was their pride and joy, providing just enough milk for them to sell at the local market. Jack's mother would often tell him stories of his father's adventures as a knight, and Jack would listen, wide-eyed and full of wonder.
Remember, Jack,
His mother would say,
even in our hardest times, we must remain hopeful and strong.
One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over their humble abode, Jack and his mother sat by the fire, discussing their ever-growing financial troubles.
Jack,
His mother said, worry etched on her face.
we can't survive like this much longer. Milky White isn't producing enough milk, and we barely have enough to eat. We must make a difficult decision.
Jack, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames, looked at his mother, sensing the gravity of the situation.
What must we do, Mother?
He asked. With a deep sigh, she replied,
We must sell Milky White. We have no other choice.
Jack's heart sank at the thought of parting with their beloved cow, but he knew his mother was right. They needed the money, and he was determined to help his family. So, the next morning, Jack set out for the market with Milky White, a determined glint in his eye, unaware of the incredible adventure that awaited him. Chapter 2: The Mysterious Old Man. As Jack and Milky White ambled along the cobblestone path towards the bustling market, the sun peeked through the leaves of the forest, dappling the ground with golden light. Jack's thoughts were filled with worries about selling Milky White, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder at the beauty surrounding him. It was as if the magical realm of Etheria was whispering secrets to him through the rustling leaves and the gentle babbling of the nearby brook. As they emerged from the forest and approached the market, a peculiar sight caught Jack's eye. Standing by the side of the road was an old man with a long, flowing beard and eyes that twinkled like the stars in the night sky. He leaned on a gnarled staff and wore a cloak adorned with symbols that seemed to dance and shimmer in the sunlight.
"Ah, young Jack,"
the old man called out, his voice as soft and warm as the summer breeze.
"I see you're off to sell your fine cow."
Jack hesitated, unsure of how the stranger knew his name and intentions, but curiosity got the better of him.
Yes, sir.
He replied cautiously.
My mother, and I need the money to survive.
The old man nodded knowingly and beckoned Jack closer.
"I have something that may interest you, young one. Something that could change your life forever."
From the depths of his cloak, the old man produced a small pouch, which he opened to reveal 5 glistening beans.
These, Jack, are no ordinary beans,
he said, his voice taking on a mysterious tone.
"These are magic beans. Plant them beneath the light of the full moon, and they will bring you fortune beyond your wildest dreams."
Jack, captivated by the promise of magic, found himself entranced by the beans. He felt a strong urge to believe the old man, and, without hesitation, he agreed to trade Milky White for the magic beans. With the deal made, Jack hurried home, eager to share the news with his mother. However, upon his arrival, his excitement was met with disbelief and anger.
Magic beans, Jack? Have you lost your mind? We needed that money. His mother cried, her voice laced with desperation and heartache soak.
In a fit of frustration, she tossed the beans out the window and sent Jack to bed without supper. Jack lay in his bed, his stomach rumbling with hunger, and his heart heavy with regret. As the moon rose high in the sky, casting silvery shadows across his room, Jack drifted into a fitful sleep, unaware that the real adventure was about to begin. Chapter 3: The Beanstalk's Ascent. As the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, Jack awoke with a start. The events of the previous day felt like a distant dream, but the quiet emptiness of the house served as a stark reminder of his impulsive decision. He reluctantly dragged himself out of bed and peered out the window, hoping to see Milky White grazing in the field, but instead, his eyes fell upon a sight more astonishing than he could have ever imagined. Where his mother had tossed the beans, a towering beanstalk had sprouted overnight. Its massive, twisted vines reached up into the sky, disappearing into the clouds above. The leaves shimmered with a faint, otherworldly glow, and the air seemed to hum with the energy of the magic beans. Jack's heart raced with excitement and awe, and he could not help but feel drawn to the beanstalk. He called out to his mother, but there was no response. Taking this as a sign, Jack stepped outside and approached the colossal plant. He could feel the pulse of magic emanating from it, and a sense of adventure welled up within him. He reached out, gripping the sturdy vines, and began to climb. The beanstalk swayed gently in the morning breeze, but Jack was undeterred. The higher he climbed, the more wondrous the world below appeared. He could see the entire village and the emerald green fields stretching out to the horizon. The sun cast a golden light on the landscape, and Jack felt as though he was ascending into a world of enchantment. As Jack continued his ascent, he noticed peculiar, fantastical creatures flitting among the leaves, watching him with curious eyes. He glimpsed fairies with gossamer wings, and even a small, mischievous-looking creature that seemed to be part lizard, part bird. The beanstalk appeared to be a bridge between his ordinary world and the magical realm of Etheria, and Jack was determined to uncover its secrets. Hours passed, and the clouds began to envelop Jack, casting him into a misty realm where he could no longer see the world below. Though he was exhausted, his determination carried him upward. Finally, as the mist cleared, Jack found himself atop a cloud as solid as the ground itself. There, nestled in the sky, was a sight that left him breathless, a magnificent castle, the likes of which he had only seen in his most fantastic dreams. With a sense of wonder and curiosity driving him forward, Jack stepped onto the cloud and began to make his way toward the castle. Little did he know that his greatest adventure was just beginning. Chapter 4. The Castle in the Clouds. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the castle. The grand structure loomed above him, its towers piercing the sky and its walls adorned with intricate carvings of mythical creatures. The massive wooden doors were ajar, as if inviting Jack to venture inside. With a deep breath, Jack stepped into the dimly lit entrance hall. Its vaulted ceiling seemed to stretch forever, and the walls were lined with enormous portraits of giants, each one more intimidating than the last. As Jack tiptoed through the vast corridors, his footsteps echoed throughout the castle, making him feel even smaller than he already did. Suddenly, Jack heard a soft humming coming from one of the rooms. He peeked inside and saw a giantess, her hair the color of the night sky, and her eyes as gentle as the first light of dawn. She was weaving a tapestry that shimmered with the same magical energy as the beanstalk.
"Hello?"
Jack whispered, trying not to startle her. She looked down at him, her eyes widening in surprise.
"Oh, a human child.
She exclaimed.
What brings you to our castle in the sky?"
Jack hesitated, unsure of what to say, but the giantess's warm smile encouraged him to speak. He told her of his journey up the beanstalk, his struggles, and his hopes to find something to help his mother. The giantess listened with a sympathetic ear.
"I understand your plight, little one,"
she said.
"My husband, the giant, has many treasures he's taken from the world below. But be warned, he is not as kind as I am. If he catches you, he'll surely eat you."
Jack's eyes widened in terror, but the thought of returning home empty-handed was too disheartening. He mustered his courage and asked the giantess where the treasure was hidden.
"In the chamber down the hall,"
she whispered.
"You will find a room filled with gold coins. But be quick, for my husband will return soon, And if he finds you,
Jack nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He thanked the jaundice and made his way to the chamber she described. As he entered the room, his eyes widened at the sight of the mountains of gold coins that sparkled like the sun. He quickly filled his pockets, feeling the weight of the gold and the hope it carried. But as he made his way back to the entrance, a deep, thunderous voice echoed through the castle.
Fee-fee-fo-fum! I smell the blood of an Englishman.
Jack's heart raced, and he knew he had to escape before the giant discovered him. He had obtained a treasure that could change his life, but now he had to make it back home to share it with his mother. The adventure was far from over, and Jack knew he had to be braver than ever before. Chapter 5: A Daring Escape. As the giant's booming voice echoed through the castle, Jack's heart pounded in his chest. His pockets brimming with gold coins, he sprinted toward the entrance, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The castle's dimly lit corridors seemed to stretch on forever, and Jack feared he would never make it out alive. Suddenly, the jaundice appeared before him, her eyes filled with worry.
quickly, little one.
She urged.
My husband is near. You must leave at once.
Thank you,
Jack whispered, his voice trembling. With a final nod of gratitude, he dashed out of the castle and onto the beanstalk, which still reached down to the world below like a lifeline. Jack's hands gripped the beanstalk's thick vines as he began his perilous descent. The wind whipped around him, tugging at his clothes and threatening to rip him from his precarious hold. With each passing moment, the ground seemed both closer and farther away, a paradox that filled Jack with both hope and dread. As Jack made his way down, he couldn't help but think of his mother waiting at home, unaware of the danger he was in. He imagined the joy on her face when she saw the gold coins he had brought, and this thought spurred him on, giving him the strength to continue. Finally, Jack's feet touched solid ground, and he collapsed onto the soft earth, his heart still racing from his daring escape. He wasted no time in running to his humble home, where his mother was anxiously awaiting his return.
Jack,
She cried, pulling him into a tight embrace.
I was so worried. What took you so long?
Jack, still breathless from his ordeal, could only manage to say,
I have something to show you.
before reaching into his pockets and pulling out the gold coins. His mother's eyes widened with amazement as the coins spilled into her hands.
Jack, where did you find these?
She asked, her voice filled with awe.
I'll tell you everything.
Jack promised.
But first, we must hide these coins and make sure we are safe.
Together, they stashed the gold coins in a secret hiding spot, ensuring their newfound fortune would remain safe from prying eyes. As the sun set on their small cottage, Jack recounted his incredible journey up the beanstalk and the mysterious castle in the clouds. His mother listened with a mixture of wonder and fear, holding her son close as she thanked her lucky stars that he had returned home safely. Their lives would be forever changed by the treasures Jack had discovered, but little did they know that this was only the beginning of his adventures in the realm of giants. Chapter 6: The Quest for the Golden Goose. Days turned into weeks, and Jack's family no longer struggled with the crushing weight of poverty. Their simple cottage had been transformed into a cozy, well-kept home, thanks to the gold coins Jack had brought back from the giant's castle. But Jack's curiosity still burned within him, and he knew there were more wonders to be found in the land above. One morning, as his mother busied herself in the garden, Jack made his decision. He would climb the beanstalk once more, to see what other treasures awaited him in the giant's realm. Without a word to his mother, he started his ascent up the beanstalk, determined to bring back something even more magical. As Jack reached the top, he found himself back in the castle's shadow, its towering walls seemingly a gateway to another world. He crept inside, careful not to alert the giant or his wife. He knew that this time, he might not be so lucky in making a narrow escape. In a hidden chamber, Jack discovered an amazing sight, a magnificent golden goose, its feathers shimmering like liquid gold. It was nestled on a bed of the softest straw, its eyes closed as if in a peaceful slumber. Jack knew that such a creature must be worth a fortune and could bring even more prosperity to his family. Carefully, Jack lifted the golden goose from its nest, trying not to disturb its sleep. As he did, he noticed that the goose's feathers seemed to be imbued with a strange power, a warmth that filled him with a sense of safety and contentment. He knew that he must bring the goose home, whatever the risk. As Jack tiptoed through the castle with the golden goose cradled in his arms, he heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. The giant was near, and Jack's heart raced, as he realized he had to make his escape now, or be captured by the fearsome creature. Hugging the golden goose close to his chest, Jack sprinted toward the beanstalk and began his rapid descent. The wind howled around him, but Jack clung tightly to the beanstalk, determined not to lose his precious cargo. As he neared the ground, Jack could hear the distant roar of the giant, enraged by the theft of his prized possession. But Jack had escaped once more, narrowly avoiding the giant's wrath. He hastened home, eager to share his incredible discovery with his mother, and change their lives for the better once again. But with each new treasure Jack brought back from the world above, the danger grew, and the consequences of his actions began to loom large over his life and the lives of those he loved. Chapter 7: The Enchanted Harp. Despite the increasing danger and his mother's growing concern, Jack's curiosity and ambition could not be contained. The world above held a powerful allure, and Jack was determined to uncover all of its secrets. So, once more, he decided to climb the beanstalk, eager to find another magical treasure to bring home. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he reached the castle in the clouds for the third time. He moved cautiously, aware of the ever-present threat of the giant. As he crept through the vast halls, Jack heard a sound that made him pause, a melody so enchanting, it seemed to call to him, beckoning him closer. Following the captivating sound, Jack discovered a dimly lit chamber where a wondrous sight awaited him. There, resting on an ornate pedestal, was a harp unlike any he had ever seen. Its body was made of polished silver, and its strings were spun from the finest gold. The harp seemed to be playing itself, the sweet melody resonating through the air and wrapping around Jack like a warm embrace. Jack knew that he had found his next prize, and without a moment's hesitation, he carefully lifted the harp from its pedestal. But the moment he touched the harp, its strings fell silent, and the enchanting melody ceased. In the sudden stillness, Jack heard a voice, soft and sorrowful, coming from the harp itself.
Please, return me to my rightful place.
The harp whispered.
I belong in this castle, playing my music for the giant.
Jack hesitated, moved by the harp's plea, but his determination to bring more treasures home for his mother overcame his doubts.
I'm sorry,
He said quietly.
but I must take you with me.
Clutching the harp, Jack retraced his steps, hoping to leave the castle unnoticed. But as he made his way toward the beanstalk, the harp's strings began to vibrate, and it let out a wailing cry that echoed through the castle halls.
Master, help me! I am being stolen.
The giant's thunderous roar filled the air, and the castle shook with his fury. Jack knew that he had no time to waste. He had to escape now, or he would never leave the castle alive. Chapter 8: a desperate race. With the enchanted harp's wailing cry still echoing through the air, Jack sprinted towards the beanstalk, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. He could hear the giant's enraged footsteps rumbling behind him, shaking the castle with their force. Jack knew that he had to move quickly, or he would never see his mother or their home again. As Jack reached the beanstalk, he took a deep breath and started his perilous descent, clutching the harp tightly to his chest. He felt as if he were being pursued by a storm, the giant's roars and the harp's desperate cries blending together to form a cacophony of fear and determination. As Jack neared the ground, he could see his mother anxiously waiting for him, her eyes wide with concern.
Jack,
She cried,
the axe. You must cut down the beanstalk before the giant reaches us.
Gritting his teeth, Jack leaped the final few feet to the ground, the impact sending a jolt of pain through his legs. With no time to waste, he took the axe from his mother's hands and began to swing it at the base of the beanstalk, the sharp blade biting into the thick vines. Above him, the giant's furious bellows grew closer, and Jack felt the beanstalk shudder beneath the weight of the approaching menace. Sweat poured down his brow, but he couldn't afford to slow down. His arms ached from the effort, but he continued to hack away at the beanstalk, his mother's anxious gaze spurring him on. As the last vine was severed, the beanstalk began to tremble and sway, its connection to the earth growing weaker by the second. With a final, mighty swing, Jack cleaved through the remaining tendrils, and the colossal plant began to topple, bringing the giant crashing down with it. The earth shook as the beanstalk fell, the giant's screams echoing through the air before being silenced by the impact. Jack and his mother stood there, breathless and trembling, as they watched the last remnants of the beanstalk wither and die. The threat of the giant had been vanquished, but their lives would never be the same. Chapter 9: A New Beginning. With the gold coins, the golden goose, and the enchanted harp in their possession, Jack and his mother's lives were transformed. They were no longer plagued by poverty and hunger, but instead lived comfortably in a beautiful cottage surrounded by lush, green fields. The enchanted harp filled their home with beautiful music, while the golden goose laid a golden egg every day, ensuring that they would never want for anything again. The villagers, who had once pitied Jack and his mother, now admired them for their newfound wealth and the courage Jack had shown in his daring adventures. Jack was celebrated as a hero, and stories of his resourcefulness spread far and wide. One day, as Jack and his mother sat in their garden, basking in the warmth of the sun, she turned to him and said,
Jack, my dear boy, you have proven that even in the face of great adversity, bravery and wit can carry the day. But we must never forget the lessons we have learned.
Jack nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of his mother's words.
I know, Mother. We must always be grateful for our blessings and never let greed consume us.
As the years went by, Jack and his mother used their wealth to help those in need, bettering the lives of their fellow villagers. They understood the importance of compassion and generosity, and in doing so, they gained not only material wealth, but also the love and respect of their community. And so, as the sun set on their once bleak lives, Jack and his mother basked in the warmth of their newfound happiness, knowing that they had overcome their hardships and emerged stronger for it. They had learned that true riches lay not in gold or magical treasures, but in the love they shared and the knowledge that, together, they could overcome any challenge that life threw their way. And as the enchanted harp played its sweet melodies, the tale of Jack Everhart and his adventures up the beanstalk lived on in the hearts of all who heard it, a testament to the power of courage, resourcefulness, and the love between a mother and her son.
Chapter 1: The Crybaby Princess. Once upon a time in the ancient kingdom of Faraway Kingdom, there lived a young princess named Pyongyang. She was the beloved daughter of the wise King Pyongwon and his gentle queen. Pyongyang was a beautiful child with eyes that sparkled like the stars and a smile that could light up the night sky. However, her tearful reputation had earned her the nickname of the Crybaby Princess. In the royal palace, the sound of Pyongyang's sobs was a daily occurrence. Whether it was a scraped knee or a lost toy, her tears would flow like a river, causing the palace staff to scramble and try to comfort her. The king, a patient man, would often shake his head and chuckle at his daughter's dramatic displays. One day, as the king passed by Pyongyang's room, he heard her crying again. With a sigh, he walked in and sat by her side.
My dear Pyongyang,
He said gently,
you must learn to control your tears. There's a saying in our kingdom. The one who cries today will marry foolish Ondel tomorrow.
Pyongyang sniffled and wiped her tears, looking at her father with curious eyes.
Who is foolish Ondel, father?
King Pyongwon smiled and began to tell her the tale of Ondal, a young man in their kingdom known for his foolishness and clumsiness. He explained that Ondal was well-meaning but often found himself in trouble due to his lack of wit. As the days passed, Pyongyang heard her father's words echoing in her mind. She didn't want to marry someone considered foolish. So, she made a decision to change her fate. She practiced controlling her tears, took up reading, and learned about history, strategy, and the arts. When her father noticed the change in her, he was pleased. He began to teach her about the kingdom and its people, helping her understand the responsibilities that came with her royal birth. Pyongyang became determined to make her life her own and prove her worth beyond her childhood reputation. Years passed, and Pyongyang grew into a beautiful and intelligent young woman. Yet, her father's prophecy about marrying foolish Ondal lingered in the back of her mind. One day, after deep contemplation, she approached her father with a request.
Father,
She said, her voice firm and steady.
I have thought long and hard about your prophecy. I have grown and learned so much, but I cannot escape the destiny you spoke of. If it is my fate to marry foolish Ondal, then I accept it. But I will not let it define my life or my happiness.
King Pyongwon looked into his daughter's eyes, seeing the determination and strength that had blossomed within her. He nodded solemnly, knowing that his clever and courageous daughter would find a way to make the best of her fate. And so, the preparations began for the union between Princess Pyongyang and foolish Ondal. Little did they know, this marriage would mark the beginning of an extraordinary journey, full of love, adventure, and the unbreakable human spirit. Chapter 2: An Unexpected Union. In the bustling market of Faraway Kingdom, news of Princess Pyongyang's upcoming marriage to foolish Ondal spread like wildfire. The people whispered and gossiped, wondering how such a match could come to be. Ondal, unaware of his impending fate, continued to bumble through his days, causing mischief and laughter wherever he went. As the day of the wedding approached, the palace was adorned with colorful silk banners and fragrant flowers. The air was filled with anticipation and curiosity, with many wondering how the union of a wise princess and a foolish young man would unfold. When the moment arrived, Princess Pyongyang, dressed in a breathtaking hanbok of vibrant reds and blues, stood before her people with her head held high. Beside her, Ondal fidgeted nervously, his face flushed with both embarrassment and awe. As the ceremony began, the royal court watched with bated breath, unsure of what to expect. Yet, as they exchanged vows, something unexpected happened. As Ondal shyly looked into Pyongyang's eyes, he saw a warmth and understanding that he had never known. And in Ondal's gaze, Pyongyang recognized a gentle kindness that touched her heart. As the days turned into weeks, Pyongyang and Ondal grew closer. They walked together through the palace gardens, sharing stories of their childhoods and dreams for the future. Pyongyang found herself smiling and laughing more than she ever had, delighting in Ondal's good-natured humor and childlike wonder. One evening, as they sat beneath the stars, Pyongyang looked at Ondal and said,
"You know, there is more to you than meets the eye. I see a brave and loyal heart, and I believe that you have the potential to be so much more than just foolish Ondal."
Ondal blushed and stammered.
Why you truly believe that, Your Highness?
Pyongyang nodded, her eyes shining with conviction.
Yes, I do. And I want to help you discover your true potential.
Ondal was touched by Pyongyang's faith in him, and he vowed to do everything in his power to prove himself worthy of her love and support. And so, hand in hand, they began a journey of growth and transformation, each determined to make their unconventional union a testament to the power of love and the strength of the human spirit. Chapter 3: The Making of a Soldier. With Pyongyang's encouragement, Ondal began his journey of self-discovery. He learned the art of reading and writing, guided by Pyongyang's gentle hand. He studied history, strategy, and the art of war, his eyes opening to a world of possibilities that he had never imagined. One day, as they sat in the palace library, Pyongyang turned to Ondal and said,
"I believe that you have the heart of a warrior, and with the right training you could become a great soldier for our kingdom."
Ondal looked at her, uncertainty clouding his eyes.
Do you truly think that I can become a soldier, Your Highness? I have always been clumsy and foolish.
Pyongyang smiled and squeezed his hand.
"I have faith in you, Ondal. I see a brave and loyal heart within you, and I believe that you can achieve anything you set your mind to."
And so, Ondal began his training as a soldier. Under the watchful eye of the kingdom's finest military instructors, he practiced archery, swordsmanship, and horsemanship. He trained tirelessly, his determination fueled by Pyongyang's unwavering support and belief in him. As the months went by, Ondal's progress astounded everyone. He went from a clumsy young man who could barely hold a bow to a skilled archer whose arrows found their mark every time. His swordsmanship became swift and precise, and his horsemanship was unmatched. One day, as Ondal practiced his archery in the palace courtyard, King Pyongyang came to watch. He marveled at his son-in-law's newfound abilities and turned to Pyongyang with a proud smile.
"My daughter, you have done something incredible. You have transformed foolish Ondal into a skilled warrior. I am truly impressed."
Pyongyang beamed with pride as she looked at Ondal, who stood tall and strong.
It was Ondal's determination and hard work that led to his transformation, father. I only gave him the opportunity and encouragement to discover his true potential.
As Ondal's training continued, word spread throughout the kingdom of his incredible transformation. The people began to see him in a new light, and whispers of "foolish Ondal" were replaced with admiration for the dedicated soldier he had become. With each passing day, Ondal grew more confident and skilled, his love for Pyongyang and his desire to protect their kingdom fueling his unwavering determination. And as Ondal continued to break free from the chains of his past, he and Pyongyang found themselves growing closer than ever, their love deepening and their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Chapter 4: A Test of Courage. As the days turned into months, Ondal's transformation became the talk of the kingdom. People from near and far came to witness the once foolish young man turned skilled warrior. Among them were the kingdom's generals and military officers, who saw in Ondal a promising candidate for their ranks. One morning, as Ondal and Pyongyang strolled through the palace gardens, General He, a respected and seasoned warrior, approached them. He looked at Ondal with a serious expression and said,
"Young man, I have heard of your remarkable progress and dedication to the art of war. I believe it is time for you to take the military exams and prove your worth to our king and kingdom."
Ondal hesitated, uncertainty clouding his eyes. He looked at Pyongyang, who gave him an encouraging smile.
I will do my best, General He. I owe it to Princess Pyongyang and to myself to see how far I have come.
And so, Ondal began to prepare for the military exams, a series of rigorous tests that would determine his eligibility for a position within the kingdom's military ranks. He studied strategy, honed his skills in archery and swordsmanship, and practiced his horsemanship until he could ride like the wind. When the day of the exams finally arrived, Ondal stood before the king, the queen, and the royal court, his heart pounding in his chest. As he looked out at the expectant faces of his friends, family, and fellow citizens, he took a deep breath and whispered to himself,
I can do this. For Pyongyang, for my kingdom, and for myself.
The military exams were grueling, testing both Ondal's physical prowess and his strategic mind. He faced off against seasoned warriors in swordsmanship and archery, displaying a level of skill and determination that left his opponents in awe. He solved complex military scenarios, showcasing a tactical mind that belied his former reputation as a fool. As the final challenge came to an end, Ondal stood before King Pyongwon, his chest heaving from exhaustion. The king looked at him with pride and admiration and announced to the gathered crowd,
Ondal, you have proven yourself beyond any doubt. You have shown courage, skill, and intelligence that few possess. I am honored to welcome you into the ranks of our kingdom's military as a general.
The crowd erupted in cheers, and Ondal felt tears of joy welling up in his eyes. He turned to Pyongyang, who stood beaming with pride, and whispered,
Thank you, my love, for believing in me and showing me the strength that was hidden within.
As Ondal took his place among the kingdom's most respected warriors, he knew that his journey had only just begun. With Pyongyang by his side, he was ready to face any challenge that lay ahead, determined to protect their kingdom and prove that even the most unlikely of heroes could rise above their past to achieve greatness. Chapter 5: A Call to Arms. As General Ondal embraced his new role, he quickly gained the respect and admiration of his fellow soldiers. His dedication and humility, combined with his newfound skill and intelligence, made him a beloved and trusted leader among the ranks. One day, as Ondal and his troops were training in the palace courtyard, a messenger arrived with urgent news. The neighboring kingdom of Baekje had invaded Goguryeu's borders, causing panic and chaos among the people. King Pyongwon called for a council of his generals and advisors, seeking their guidance on how to best protect the kingdom and repel the invaders. As the council members discussed various strategies, Ondal stepped forward, his voice steady and strong.
Your Majesty, I believe that we must act swiftly and decisively to defend our kingdom. I propose that we gather our troops and march to meet the enemy at the border, where we can engage them in battle and drive them back to their own lands.
King Pyongwon nodded, impressed with Ondal's confidence and determination.
Very well, General Ondal. I entrust you with the command of our forces. May your courage and wisdom guide us to victory.
As Ondal prepared to leave for the front lines, Pyongyang stood by his side, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and worry.
My love,
she whispered.
please promise me that you will return to me safely.
Ondal looked into her eyes and embraced her tightly.
I promise, Pyongyang. I will fight with all my heart and strength, but I will always remember that my true battle is to return home to you.
With their goodbyes said, Ondal led his troops to the border, where they would face their greatest challenge yet. As they marched, word spread throughout the kingdom of their brave general and his army, and the people prayed for their safe return. As the battle commenced, Ondal fought with the ferocity of a lion and the grace of a tiger, his every move a testament to his love for Pyongyang and his devotion to their kingdom. His soldiers followed his lead, their spirits lifted by his unwavering determination and strength. Together, they pushed back the invading forces, and the tide of the battle began to turn. As the enemy retreated, cheers of victory rang out among the Goguryeo troops, their hearts swelling with pride and relief. As Ondal looked out at the battlefield, he knew that he had proven himself not only as a soldier but as a leader. He had shown his people and himself that even the most unlikely of heroes could rise above their past and achieve greatness. And as he turned his thoughts to Pyongyang waiting for him back at the palace, he knew that their love had been the guiding force that had led him to this moment. With each step he took toward home, he carried with him the knowledge that he had fought for something greater than himself, for love, for honor, and for the future of their kingdom. Chapter 6. The Price of Valor. With the invading forces of Baekje driven back, General Ondal and his troops returned to the kingdom as heroes. The people of Goguryeo lined the streets, showering them with flowers and praise, their hearts filled with gratitude and relief. As Ondal rode through the cheering crowds, his eyes searched for the one face that mattered most to him, Pyongyang. As they finally locked eyes, a surge of love and happiness filled his heart. They embraced, their joy at being reunited shining brightly for all to see. In the days that followed, the kingdom celebrated their victory with feasts, music, and dancing. King Pyongyang praised Ondal and his troops, rewarding them with honors and gifts for their bravery and service to the kingdom. However, peace did not last long. News soon arrived that the Baekje forces had regrouped and were preparing to launch another attack on Goguryeo. The kingdom was once again thrown into a state of uncertainty and fear. King Pyongyang summoned his council and declared,
"We must stand strong against our enemies and protect our people at all costs. General Ondal, I entrust you once again with the command of our forces. You have proven yourself a capable and valiant leader, and I have faith in your ability to defend our kingdom."
As Ondal prepared to leave for the front lines once more, Pyongyang stood by his side, her heart heavy with worry.
Ondal, my love, please be careful. I cannot bear the thought of losing you,
she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Ondal embraced her, his voice filled with determination.
I will do everything in my power to return to you, Pyongyang. Remember that our love is the source of my strength, and it will guide me through the battles to come.
With their goodbyes said, Ondal once again led his troops into battle, his heart filled with love for Pyongyang and determination to protect their kingdom. As they fought valiantly against the Baekje forces, Ondal's courage and skill inspired his soldiers, driving them to push back the enemy once more. In the heat of the battle, as Ondal charged toward the enemy commander, an arrow flew through the air, finding its mark in Ondal's chest. He fell to the ground, his vision fading as his comrades rushed to his side. As word of Ondal's injury reached the kingdom, Pyongyang's heart shattered. She rode as fast as her horse could carry her to the battlefield, praying that she would not be too late. The soldiers attempted to move General Ondal's body into the coffin to proceed with the funeral procession, but the coffin wouldn't budge. It was then that Pyongyang noticed Ondal's body lying inside the coffin. She hugged him tightly and cried tears like rain, saying,
Please, Ondal, rest now. You are my heart, my love, my everything. Let's meet again in heaven.
Only then did the coffin budge. It seemed as though Ondal's body was saying, I love Pyongyang. As Pyongyang wept, the world around her seemed to fade, leaving only the love they had shared and the memory of the hero who had given everything for his kingdom and his love. Chapter 7. A Love Beyond Time. With the loss of Ondal, the people of Goguryeo mourned deeply, their hearts heavy with grief. His bravery and sacrifice were remembered and honored throughout the kingdom, and his name became synonymous with courage and love. In the days that followed, Pyongyang found herself struggling with the weight of her heartache. She longed for the comfort and strength that Ondal had always provided, her world feeling empty without him by her side. As she wandered through the palace gardens, lost in her memories, she heard the soft rustling of leaves and the gentle whisper of a familiar voice.
Pyongyang, my love, do not weep for me, for I am always with you.
Startled, she looked around, but there was no one there. Yet, she felt a warmth envelop her, like a gentle embrace, and she knew in her heart that it was Ondal's spirit, comforting her even in death. King Pyongwon, seeing his daughter's pain, offered her words of wisdom.
Pyongyang, my dear, we must remember the love and courage that Ondal showed us, and let it inspire us to be strong. His spirit will live on in our hearts and in the stories we tell of his bravery.
Chapter 8. A Kingdom United. Years had passed since Ondal's sacrifice, and Goguryeo had grown stronger, its people united by the shared memory of the hero who had given his life for their protection. As Pyongyang continued to serve her kingdom, she made it her mission to instill the values of love, courage, and unity in the hearts of her people. One day, as she walked through the bustling market, she heard the distant sound of laughter and music. Intrigued, she followed the noise, finding herself in front of a small group of children gathered around an elderly storyteller. With a twinkle in his eye, the storyteller recounted the tale of Princess Pyongyang and foolish Ondal, his words painting a vivid picture of their love and bravery. The children listened, their eyes wide with wonder and admiration as the story unfolded before them. As Pyongyang watched, her heart swelled with pride and joy, knowing that the memory of Ondal would live on in the hearts of the younger generation. And as the storyteller finished the tale, the children cheered and clapped, their faces glowing with excitement and inspiration. Later that day, as Pyongyang walked along the palace walls, she looked out over her kingdom and smiled. She knew that the love she and Ondal had shared would continue to inspire and unite her people, creating a legacy that would last for generations to come. As she stood there, a gentle breeze blew through the air, and she heard a soft whisper in her ear.
My love, our story has become the heart of our kingdom, and together we have made it strong. I am so proud of you, Pyongyang.
A tear rolled down her cheek as she felt Ondal's presence beside her. She whispered back,
Thank you, my love, for showing me the true meaning of courage and for giving our kingdom a story that will live on forever.
In the years that followed, Faraway Kingdom flourished under the guidance of King Pyongwon and Princess Pyongyang. The people held their heads high, proud of their heritage and the heroes who had shaped their kingdom's history. And in every corner of the land, the tale of Princess Pyongyang and foolish Ondal continued to be told, a testament to the power of love and the strength of a kingdom united.
Chapter 1. A Day in the Life of Paul Bunyan. Deep in the heart of the Pacific Northwest, nestled among the towering evergreens and rugged mountains, lay a bustling logging camp. The air was filled with the sounds of axes biting into wood, saws grinding through tree trunks, and the laughter of hard-working lumberjacks. The sun had barely risen when the camp came to life, and the lumberjacks gathered around a long wooden table for a hearty breakfast. Among them was the legendary Paul Bunyan, a towering figure with a bushy red beard and a twinkle in his eye. Seated beside him was Babe, his loyal blue ox, who chomped contentedly on a bale of hay.
"Morning, Paul,"
called out Tom, a fellow lumberjack with a friendly grin.
"How'd you sleep?"
Like a log, Tom.
Paul replied with a chuckle, wiping his mouth with a checkered napkin.
I'm ready for a full day of chopping and hauling.
After breakfast, the lumberjacks grabbed their axes and headed into the woods, their spirits high and their muscles ready for a day's work. Paul and Babe led the way, with the giant lumberjack effortlessly felling trees and the massive ox hauling them back to camp. Throughout the day, Paul and the other lumberjacks exchanged stories, jokes, and words of encouragement. The camaraderie among them was infectious, and even the toughest tasks seemed manageable when they tackled them together. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the lumberjacks returned to camp, their axes slung over their shoulders and their faces flushed with the satisfaction of a job well done. They settled around a roaring fire, the flames casting flickering shadows on their faces. Paul took out his harmonica and began to play a lively tune, while the others tapped their feet and clapped their hands in time. The music filled the night, and the laughter of the lumberjacks echoed through the forest. As the fire burned low, Paul leaned back and gazed up at the stars, a thoughtful expression on his face. He was grateful for the friendships he had found at the logging camp and the sense of purpose that filled his days. He couldn't help but wonder what new adventures lay ahead. Little did he know that a fierce rivalry and a thrilling competition were just around the corner, waiting to test his strength, his wits, and the bonds of his friendships. Chapter 2: A Rivalry Begins. The following morning, a buzz of excitement filled the logging camp. Word had spread that the logging company was organizing a high-stakes competition, the Great Timber Race. The team that could harvest the most timber in a week would win a substantial cash prize and bragging rights for a whole year. As the lumberjacks gathered around the campfire to discuss the contest, a newcomer strode into the camp. He was a tall, lean man with slicked-back hair, a sharp nose, and a sly grin. He introduced himself as Silas Slick McFadden, a self-proclaimed champion lumberjack from a rival camp.
"I've heard about this little competition,"
Silas drawled, eyeing Paul Bunyan with a challenging smirk.
"and I thought I might join in the fun. I reckon I could teach you lumbering lummoxes a thing or two about chopping wood."
Paul's brow furrowed, but he didn't rise to the bait.
The more, the merrier, Silas. May the best team win.
Silas snorted.
"Oh, they will, Bunyan. They will."
Over the next few days, the logging camp buzzed with anticipation. Teams were formed, and the lumberjacks began to devise their strategies. Paul, Babe, and their team spent long hours practicing their techniques and planning their approach. Meanwhile, Silas assembled his own team, a motley crew of tough-looking men with the same cunning glint in their eyes as their leader. They whispered and plotted in the shadows, casting sidelong glances at Paul's team and snickering under their breath. As the day of the great timber race approached, tension mounted in the camp. The lumberjacks could feel it in the air, a palpable electricity that crackled with every swing of an axe. Paul Bunyan and Silas McFadden were on a collision course, their rivalry simmering beneath the surface like water about to boil. And when the starting bell rang, the great timber race would test not only their strength and skill, but also their character and their commitment to fair play. Chapter 3: Strategies and Sabotage. With the great timber race only days away, Paul Bunyan and his team worked tirelessly to perfect their strategy. They practiced their woodcutting techniques, coordinated their movements, and fine-tuned their teamwork. Babe the Blue Ox was an essential part of their plan, his enormous strength allowing them to haul massive logs with ease. In the evenings, the team would gather round the campfire to share stories, laughter, and encouragement. Their camaraderie grew stronger each day, forging bonds that would last a lifetime. Meanwhile, Silas McFadden and his crew were up to no good. They skulked about the camp, spying on Paul's team and hatching devious plots to gain an unfair advantage in the competition. One day, while Paul and his team were busy practicing, Silas sneaked into their cabin and tampered with their equipment. He filed down their saws and axes, making them dull and ineffective. Then, with a wicked grin, he slipped away undetected. As the day of the race drew nearer, excitement in the logging camp reached a fever pitch. Lumberjacks from all around gathered to watch the showdown between Paul Bunyan and Silas McFadden, placing bets and cheering for their favorite team. Unbeknownst to Paul and his crew, their equipment had been sabotaged, putting them at a significant disadvantage. But even with the odds stacked against them, they remained focused and determined, ready to face whatever challenges the race had in store. The night before the great timber race, the camp was abuzz with anticipation. Lumberjacks huddled around campfires, discussing the upcoming contest and sharing their predictions. Paul and his team sat together, their spirits high and their hearts full of hope. As they settled down for a night of rest, they knew that the following day would test not only their strength and skill, but also their resilience and the strength of their friendship. Chapter 4: The Starting Bell. The morning of the great timber race dawned bright and clear, with the sun casting golden rays through the towering trees of the Pacific Northwest logging camp. Lumberjacks from near and far gathered to witness the epic showdown between Paul Bunyan and Silas McFadden, their faces a mix of excitement and anticipation. At the starting line, both teams stood tall and ready, their eyes fixed on the forest ahead. Paul Bunyan, towering above the rest, patted Babe the Blue Ox on the flank, his face set in determination. Beside them, Silas McFadden smirked, confident that his cunning plans would secure his victory. The race official raised his arm, signaling for silence. The crowd held its breath as he shouted,
"On your mark, get set. Go!"
The starting bell rang out, its resonant clang echoing through the forest. Without a moment's hesitation, both teams sprang into action. The sound of axes biting into wood and the rhythmic sawing of logs filled the air, accompanied by the shouts of encouragement from the gathered spectators. As the day wore on, it became clear that something was amiss with Paul's team. Their axes and saws seemed to barely make a dent in the towering trees. Paul, sensing that something was wrong, inspected their tools and discovered Silas's treachery. Their equipment had been sabotaged. Despite the setback, Paul's team refused to give up. They sharpened their tools and redoubled their efforts, working tirelessly to catch up with Silas's crew. All the while, their spirits remained unbroken, their camaraderie shining like a beacon through the challenges they faced. In the meantime, Silas and his team had built a considerable lead. They chuckled amongst themselves, certain of their impending victory. Little did they know that Paul Bunyan and his team, fueled by determination and the bonds of friendship, were steadily closing the gap. As the sun began to set, the teams found themselves neck and neck, their exhaustion tempered by their unwavering resolve. The spectators watched in awe, marveling at the incredible display of skill and teamwork. With the finish line in sight, both teams pushed themselves to their limits, each determined to prove their worth in the Great Timber Race. Chapter 5: The Turning Point. As the Great Timber Race continued, Paul Bunyan's team, driven by their indomitable spirit and unwavering determination, started to catch up with Silas, Slick, McFadden's crew. The lumberjacks on both teams pushed themselves to their limits, sweat pouring down their faces as they raced to fell trees and haul logs. Finally, Paul Bunyan could no longer stand idly by and let Silas's deceitful tactics go unchallenged. He called for a brief pause in the race, gathering the logging community and confronting Silas in front of everyone.
Silas McFadden,
Paul boomed, his deep voice carrying through the forest.
we all know you've been playing dirty, sabotaging our tools and trying to gain an unfair advantage. This race is supposed to be about skill and teamwork, not deception and trickery.
Silas sneered at Paul, attempting to maintain his facade of confidence.
Prove it, Bunyan! You're just jealous that my team is outperforming yours.
The gathered lumberjacks murmured in agreement, their eyes darting between Paul and Silas. In response, Paul held up the sabotage tools, the evidence of Silas's misdeeds clear for all to see. The crowd gasped, and Silas's face turned a deep shade of crimson. Unable to deny his actions any longer, Silas begrudgingly admitted his guilt.
All right, fine. I did it. But what are you going to do about it, Bunyan? The race is still on.
Paul stood tall, his eyes filled with determination.
We're going to continue this race, but we'll do it the right way. No more tricks, no more sabotage. Just good, honest competition. May the best team win.
Inspired by Paul's words, the logging community rallied behind him, ready to face the challenges ahead with renewed vigor. The race resumed, and with the spirit of camaraderie and fair play restored, both teams found themselves working harder and more efficiently than ever before. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest, the race reached its critical point. The teams, neck and neck, pushed themselves to the brink of exhaustion, their eyes focused on the finish line that loomed ever closer. Chapter 6: Triumph of Teamwork. With the finish line in sight, Paul Bunyan's team and Silas, Slick, McFadden's crew continued their neck-and-neck race. The air was thick with tension as the lumberjacks, exhausted but determined, refused to give up. The sun had begun to set when Paul's team, guided by their powerful leader, managed to gain a slight advantage. The lumberjacks cheered, and their camaraderie bolstered their strength as they worked together to fell trees and haul logs. Silas, watching his rival's team pull ahead, felt a pang of regret for his earlier deceitful tactics. He began to realize that his underhanded actions had not only harmed his opponents but also weakened his own team's morale. As the last moments of the race approached, it was clear that Paul's team had emerged victorious. They had shown the importance of teamwork, perseverance, and fair play throughout the competition. The logging community erupted in cheers, celebrating the triumph of their beloved hero, Paul Bunyan. Silas, feeling the weight of his defeat, approached Paul and extended a hand.
You and your team deserve to win, Bunyan. I'm sorry for my dishonesty, and I promise to learn from my mistakes.
Paul, gracious in victory, shook Silas's hand firmly.
We all make mistakes, Silas, but what matters is that we learn from them and grow. You're welcome to join us for the celebration, but remember, the bonds of teamwork and friendship are stronger than any rivalry.
The logging community came together that evening, celebrating the victorious team and the bonds forged during the race. It was a night to remember, filled with laughter, singing, and storytelling around a roaring bonfire. Chapter 7: Lessons Learned and Legends Born. In the days following the Great Timber Race, the logging community continued to buzz with excitement. Conversations centered around the thrilling competition, the heroic acts of Paul Bunyan and his team, and the lessons learned throughout the race. The logging camp slowly returned to its usual activities, but with a newfound appreciation for teamwork and fair play. The lumberjacks now understood the true value of camaraderie and how working together could help them achieve their goals. One evening, as the lumberjacks gathered around the fire, they listened intently as Paul Bunyan shared a story from his many legendary adventures with Babe the Blue Ox. The tale captivated the audience, a reminder of the spirit of the American frontier and the importance of perseverance. Silas, Slick McFadden, now a changed man, contributed to the camp's work with renewed dedication. He had learned the hard way that dishonesty only led to disappointment, and he was determined to make amends and be a true team player. As the days turned into weeks and then months, the legend of the Great Timber Race lived on, a testament to the resilience and spirit of the logging community. New friendships formed, bonds were strengthened, and the lumberjacks continued to work together, inspired by the legacy of Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox. The seasons changed, and the logging camp remained a bustling hub of activity filled with laughter, hard work, and camaraderie. The Great Timber Race had brought the community together, and the lessons learned would be passed down through generations. And so Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox continued their legendary adventures, traveling the American frontier and forever embodying the spirit of teamwork, perseverance, and friendship that had made the Great Timber Race such an unforgettable event. Chapter 1: The Discovery in the Woods. Lila's day started like any other in the quiet village of Thornwood. She helped her mother with the morning chores, feeding the chickens and collecting eggs. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Lila's thoughts wandered to the woods that lay just beyond the village's borders.
Mother, may I go exploring in the woods today?
She asked, her eyes shining with anticipation. Her mother, a kind, round-faced woman, hesitated for a moment before nodding.
Be careful, Lila, and make sure you're back before sundown.
With a grateful smile, Lila grabbed a small satchel and raced off towards the woods. As she ventured deeper into the forest, the sunlight filtered through the canopy of leaves above, casting dappled shadows on the mossy ground. The woods were a place of wonder for Lila, where her imagination could run wild. As she walked, she noticed a faint, shimmering light coming from a small clearing up ahead. Curiosity piqued, Lila cautiously approached the source of the light. There, nestled among the roots of an ancient oak tree, lay a mysterious artifact. It was a small, intricately carved silver pendant in the shape of a dragon, with sparkling emerald eyes. Lila reached out and picked up the pendant, feeling a strange warmth radiating from it. As she held it, she could sense a faint, pulsing energy coursing through her veins. She knew somehow that this artifact was magical.
Hello there,
said a voice behind her, making Lila jump. She turned to see a squirrel perched on a low-hanging branch, looking at her with unusual interest. To her astonishment, she understood the squirrel's chittering speech.
You can talk?
Lila stammered, clutching the pendant tightly.
Of course I can,
replied the squirrel, twitching its bushy tail.
And so can you, it seems. That pendant you're holding is no ordinary trinket. It has the power to communicate with animals.
Lila stared at the artifact, her eyes wide with wonder.
But how is that possible?
She asked. The squirrel shrugged.
I'm not sure, but I've heard whispers in the forest about an enchanted heirloom with the power to bridge the gap between humans and animals. You should be careful with that kind of power, though. There are many who would do anything to possess it.
As Lila made her way back to the village, she couldn't help but think about the squirrel's words. She knew she had stumbled upon something extraordinary, but she couldn't have known just how significant the artifact would become in the days to come. For now, she tucked the pendant safely into her satchel, eager to learn more about its magic and the strange world she had just discovered. Chapter 2: The Wise Wizard's Guidance. A few days after her discovery, Lila found herself once again exploring the woods. She had spent every spare moment trying to learn more about the artifact, practicing her newfound ability to communicate with animals. She had talked with birds, rabbits, and even a wise old fox. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the pendant than just the power to speak with animals. As she walked, deep in thought, Lila didn't notice the tall, cloaked figure approaching her from behind.
Greetings, young one,
said a deep, kindly voice, causing Lila to jump.
Spinning around, Lila found herself face to face with an elderly man. His long white beard and piercing blue eyes seemed to hold the wisdom of ages.
Who are you?
She stammered, clutching the pendant protectively. The old man smiled warmly.
My name is Merlin, and I am a wizard. I have been watching you these past few days, Lila. I see that you have discovered the power of the enchanted heirloom.
Leela hesitated before nodding.
Yes, but there's so much I don't understand. Why was it hidden in the woods? What is its true purpose?
Merlin's eyes twinkled as he looked at Leela.
That pendant is an ancient artifact, connected to a great destiny. It was created by a powerful sorceress to aid the one who is meant to bring balance and unity to this land. That person is a young boy named Arthur.
Leela's eyes widened.
Arthur? But how am I involved in all of this?
Merlin leaned on his staff, his gaze thoughtful.
You have a magical heritage, Leela. Your ancestors were skilled enchanters, guardians of the heirloom. It seems that fate has chosen you to play a role in Arthur's journey. The pendant will help you guide and protect him on his path to becoming king.
Leela looked down at the pendant, her heart racing.
I don't know if I'm ready for such responsibility.
Merlin placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
You have a kind heart and a strong spirit, Leela. Trust in yourself and the magic within you. Your path will become clear in time.
Over the next few weeks, Leela continued to learn from Merlin, who taught her not only about the pendant's powers, but also about her magical lineage. As she grew more confident in her abilities, Leela knew that she would be ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. The day would soon come when she would be called upon to help Arthur fulfill his destiny, and she was determined to be prepared. Chapter 3: Lord Agravain's Scheme. Unbeknownst to Leela and Merlin, word of the powerful enchanted heirloom had spread to the ears of a cunning and ambitious noble, Lord Agravain. Sitting in his dark study, he brooded over the tales he'd heard of a young girl with a mysterious pendant and the wizard who had taken her under his wing. Agravain was power-hungry and had always been searching for a way to claim the throne for himself. If he could seize the heirloom and control its magic, he believed he could achieve his desires. With a sinister smile, Lord Agravain summoned his most trusted henchmen.
I have an important task for you,
he told them, his voice dripping with malice.
There is a girl in a nearby village who possesses a pendant of extraordinary power. I want you to retrieve it for me by any means necessary.
The henchmen nodded, eager to do their master's bidding, and set off towards Lila's village, leaving a trail of fear in their wake. Back in the village, Lila was practicing her magical abilities under Merlin's watchful gaze. Birds fluttered around her, and she listened intently to their songs, focusing on her newfound gift of understanding their language. Suddenly, a sparrow swooped down, its eyes filled with panic.
Danger!
It cried.
Danger approaches the village!
Lila and Merlin exchanged worried glances, and Merlin's eyes darkened.
It seems we have drawn unwanted attention. We must prepare ourselves for whatever threat lies ahead.
As the henchmen arrived at the villagers cowered in fear, sensing the ill intent behind their presence. The henchmen demanded to know where Lila was, and it wasn't long before they found her, standing resolutely beside Merlin, a pendant glowing brightly around her neck.
You will hand over the pendant, girl!
Snarled the lead henchman, his eyes locked on the magical artifact.
Our master, Lord Agravain, desires it, and he always gets what he wants.
Lila's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood her ground, her eyes blazing with determination.
I will not give up the heirloom,
she declared, her voice steady despite her fear.
It is my responsibility to protect it and ensure it is used for good, not for the selfish ambitions of your master.
The henchmen sneered and prepared to seize the pendant by force, but they had underestimated the strength of Lila's magic and her unyielding spirit. With Merlin by her side, she was ready to face the challenges that lay ahead and defend her village from the impending peril. Chapter 4: Loyalty and Peril. As Lila and Merlin prepared to confront the henchmen, the villagers huddled together, whispering in fear. Lila's parents looked on, their faces etched with worry for their daughter's safety.
Be careful, Lila.
Her mother called out, her voice trembling.
I promise, I'll be okay.
Lila replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. The henchmen sneered at Lila and Merlin, weapons drawn and ready for a fight. But as they advanced, Lila closed her eyes and focused on the power of the enchanted heirloom. With a surge of energy, she unleashed a gust of wind that knocked the henchmen off their feet.
One by one, Lila and Merlin fought off the henchmen, using a combination of magic and cunning. The villagers watched in awe, rallying behind the courageous duel. The tide seemed to be turning in their favor, but the lead henchman had one last trick up his sleeve.
If you don't hand over the pendant,
he snarled,
we'll burn your village to the ground.
Lila hesitated, her heart torn between the safety of her family and the village she called home, and her loyalty to Merlin and Arthur. Merlin, sensing her struggle, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
Lila, this is a difficult choice, but I trust you to make the right decision.
With tears in her eyes, Lila looked around at her family and friends, knowing that she couldn't let them suffer at the hands of the henchmen. But she also knew that giving up the pendant would put the fate of the kingdom in jeopardy. At that moment, Lila understood the true nature of her role in the unfolding events. She was destined to help Arthur claim his birthright, and she couldn't let Lord Agravain use the artifact for his own malicious purposes. With newfound resolve, Lila addressed the lead henchman.
I will not give you the pendant. And if you threaten my village again, you will regret it.
The henchman laughed, but his laughter was short-lived. With a fierce cry, Lila unleashed a torrent of magic from the pendant, sending the henchman fleeing from the village in terror. Though Lila had protected her home and family, she knew that her journey was far from over. With the artifact in her possession, she had a responsibility to ensure it was used for good. And so, with Merlin's guidance and her family's blessing, Lila prepared to embark on the quest to find the rightful heir to the kingdom, and perhaps to discover her own destiny along the way. Chapter 5: The Quest for the Rightful Heir. With their bags packed and farewells said, Lila and Merlin set off on their quest to find the rightful heir to the kingdom. The journey would take them through ancient forests, treacherous mountains, and magical realms where time seemed to stand still. As they traveled, Lila and Merlin encountered many magical creatures, both friendly and fearsome. From the wise, talking animals of the enchanted forest to the mischievous sprites that lived among the flowers, Lila found herself in awe of the world she never knew existed. One day, as they made their way through a dense thicket, Lila and Merlin stumbled upon a fearsome dragon, its scales glinting like emeralds in the sunlight. The dragon roared, smoke billowing from its nostrils, and Lila felt her knees go weak with fear. But Merlin, ever the wise wizard, whispered a secret spell into Lila's ear. With newfound courage, she stepped forward and spoke the spell, her voice clear and strong. To her amazement, the dragon's eye softened, and it bowed its head in submission, allowing the duo to pass unharmed. Throughout their journey, Lila's magical abilities continued to grow, as did her loyalty to Merlin and the rightful heir. She found herself facing tests of courage, wisdom, and heart, each one more challenging than the last. One night, as they sat around a campfire, Lila asked Merlin,
How will I know when I'm ready to face Lord Agravain? How can I be sure that I'm strong enough to protect the kingdom and my family?
Merlin looked at Lila, his eyes filled with pride.
Lila, you have already proven your courage and your loyalty. When the time comes, you will know what to do. Trust in yourself and your abilities, and you will find the strength you need.
With Merlin's wise words echoing in her mind, Lila felt a renewed sense of determination. She vowed to continue her journey to help Arthur claim his birthright and to protect the kingdom from the clutches of Lord Agravain. And as the sun set on another day, Lila knew that she was one step closer to fulfilling her destiny. Chapter 6: The Enchanted Heirloom's Power. After a long and arduous journey, Lila and Merlin finally reached the hidden stronghold where the rightful heir, Arthur, had been living in secret. As they approached the entrance, Lila noticed the look of anticipation on Merlin's face.
Is he really the one, Merlin?
She asked nervously. Merlin smiled and said,
Yes, Lila. Arthur is destined to be a great king. You'll see.
When they met Arthur, Lila could hardly believe that this young man with a kind smile and gentle demeanor was destined to be a king. But as they talked, she could see the wisdom and strength that lay beneath his humble exterior. As they sat together, Merlin revealed to Arthur the story of the enchanted artifact and its connection to his birthright. Arthur listened intently, his eyes wide with amazement and determination. With the artifact in hand, Lila, Merlin, and Arthur made their way to the royal palace where the coronation ceremony would take place. As they entered the grand hall, the air buzzed with anticipation. Lila could feel the weight of destiny upon her shoulders. As the ceremony began, Lila used the enchanted heirloom's power to reveal the truth about Arthur's lineage. A magical light emanated from the artifact, casting a brilliant glow on Arthur. The gathered crowd gasped in awe as they witnessed the undeniable proof that Arthur was indeed the rightful heir to the throne. With Lord Agravain's deception exposed, the people of the kingdom rallied behind their new king. A great battle ensued, with Lila, Merlin, and Arthur leading the charge. The enchanted artifact's magic proved to be a powerful weapon against Agravain's forces, and in the end, Arthur's army emerged victorious. As the dust settled, King Arthur stood before his people, ready to begin his reign. With Lila and Merlin by his side, he vowed to bring peace and prosperity to the kingdom, and to ensure that the darkness of Lord Agravain's rule would never return. The people cheered as their new king was crowned, and Lila felt a swell of pride in her heart. She had played a crucial role in fulfilling Arthur's destiny, and she knew that her own journey was far from over. Chapter 7: A New Beginning. With King Arthur's coronation, the kingdom entered a new era of peace and prosperity. Lila felt a mixture of pride and relief as she watched her village return to its former tranquility. The people, once fearful and oppressed, now went about their lives with renewed hope and happiness. As Lila returned to her village, she was greeted as a hero. The villagers, who once regarded her with skepticism and fear, now celebrated her bravery and the crucial role she played in the kingdom's salvation. Lila's parents embraced her, their eyes filled with tears of joy and gratitude.
Lila, my child, you've done us so proud.
Her mother said, her voice trembling with emotion. Her father added,
You have shown everyone the true power of your magical abilities, and we couldn't be more proud of you.
As Lila adjusted to her newfound status, she continued to practice her magical skills, guided by Merlin, who frequently visited the village. Under his tutelage, Lila's abilities flourished, and she became a respected member of the community. One day, as Lila and Merlin walked through the village, they spoke of the future and the adventures that lay ahead.
Lila, you have proven yourself to be a true guardian of the enchanted artifact and a loyal ally to King Arthur.
Merlin said, his eyes twinkling with pride.
I foresee many more adventures for you, for Arthur, and for the Knights of the Round Table.
Lila smiled, her heart swelling with excitement and anticipation.
I'm ready for whatever comes my way, Merlin,
she declared, her voice full of determination.
As long as I have my friends and my magic, I know I can face any challenge.
With a promise of future adventures, Lila continued to grow and learn under Merlin's guidance, ready to defend her village, her kingdom, and the people she loved. And so a new chapter began for Lila, Merlin, Arthur, and the Knights of the Round Table, a chapter filled with courage, friendship, and magic, where the bonds they forged would echo through the ages. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer, and the vegetable man, and the butcher until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony that such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it. $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So Della did it. Which instigates the moral reflection that life is made up of sobs, sniffles, and smiles, with sniffles predominating. While the mistress of the home is gradually subsiding from the first stage to the second, take a look at the home. A furnished flat at $8 per week. It did not exactly beggar description, but it certainly had that word on the lookout for the mendicancy squad. In the vestibule below was a letter box into which no letter would go, and an electric button from which no mortal finger could coax a ring. Also appertaining thereunto was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. The Dillingham had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity, when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. Now, when the income was shrunk to $20, though, they were thinking seriously of contracting to a modest and unassuming D. But whenever Mr. James Dillingham Young came home and reached his flat above, he was called Jim, and greatly hugged by Mrs. James Dillingham Young, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a gray cat walking a gray fence in a gray backyard. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present. She had been saving every penny she could for months, with this result. $20 a week doesn't go far. Expenses had been greater than she had calculated. They always are. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. Her Jim. Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him. Something fine and rare and sterling, something just a little bit near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. There was a pier glass between the windows of the room. Perhaps you have seen a pier glass in an $8 flat. A very thin and very agile person may, by observing his reflection in a rapid sequence of longitudinal strips, obtain a fairly accurate conception of his looks. Della, being slender, had mastered the art. Suddenly she whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Rapidly she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Now there were two possessions of the James Dillingham Youngs in which they both took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the airshaft, Della would have let her hair hang out the window some day to dry just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Had King Solomon been the janitor, with all his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. And then she did it up again nervously and quickly. Once she faltered for a minute and stood still while a tear or two splashed on the worn red carpet. On went her old brown jacket, on went her old brown hat. With a whirl of skirts and with the brilliant sparkle still in her eyes, she fluttered out the door and down the stairs to the street. Where she stopped, the sign read, "Sifroni, hair goods of all kinds." One flight up Della ran, and collected herself, panting. Madame, large, white, chilly, hardly looked the Sifroni.
"Will you buy my hair?"
asked Della.
"I buy hair,"
said Madame.
"Take your hat off and let's have a sight at the looks of it."
Down rippled the brown cascade.
$20,
said Madame, lifting the mass with a practiced hand.
"Give it to me quick,"
said Della. Oh, and the next 2 hours tripped by on rosy wings. Forget the hashed metaphor. She was ransacking the stores for Jim's present. She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and no one else. There was no other like it in any of the stores, and she had turned all of them inside out. It was a platinum fob chain, simple and chaste in design, properly proclaiming its value by substance alone and not by meretricious ornamentation, as all good things should do. It was even worthy of the watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew that it must be Jim's. It was like him. Quietness and value, the description applied to both. $21 they took from her for it, and she hurried home with the 87 cents. With that chain on his watch, Jim might be properly anxious about the time in any company. Grand as the watch was, he sometimes looked at it on the sly on account of the old leather strap that he used in place of a chain. When Della reached home, her intoxication gave way a little to prudence and reason. She got out her curling irons and lighted the gas and went to work repairing the ravages made by generosity added to love. Which is always a tremendous task, dear friends, a mammoth task. Within 40 minutes her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. She looked at her reflection in the mirror long, carefully, and critically.
If Jim doesn't kill me,
she said to herself,
before he takes a second look at me, he'll say I look like a Coney Island chorus girl. But what could I do? What could I do with $1.87?
At 7 o'clock the coffee was made and the frying pan was on the back of the stove hot and ready to cook the chops. Jim was never late. Della doubled the fob chain in her hand and sat on the corner of the table near the door that he always entered. Then she heard his step on the stairway down on the first flight, and she turned white for just a moment. She had a habit of saying a little silent prayer about the simplest everyday things, and now she whispered,
"Please God, make him think I am still pretty."
The door opened and Jim stepped in and closed it. He looked thin and very serious. Poor fellow, he was only 22 and to be burdened with a family. He needed a new overcoat and he was without gloves. Jim stopped inside the door, as immovable as a setter at the scent of quail. His eyes were fixed upon Della, and there was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her fixedly with that peculiar expression on his face. Della wriggled off the table and went for him.
"Jim, darling,"
she cried,
"don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off and sold because I couldn't have lived through Christmas without giving you a present. It'll grow out again, you won't mind, will you? I just had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I've got for you."
"You've cut off your hair?"
asked Jim laboriously, as if he had not arrived at that patent fact yet even after the hardest mental labor.
"Cut it off and sold it,"
said Della.
"Don't you like me just as well, anyhow? I'm me without my hair, ain't I?"
Jim looked about the room curiously.
"You say your hair is gone?"
he said, with an air almost of idiocy.
"You needn't look for it,"
said Della.
"It's sold. I tell you, sold and gone too. It's Christmas Eve, boy. Be good to me, for it went for you. Maybe the hairs of my head were numbered,"
she went on with sudden serious sweetness.
"But nobody could ever count my love for you. Shall I put the chops on, Jim?"
Out of his trance, Jim seemed quickly to wake. He enfolded his Della. For 10 seconds let us regard with discreet scrutiny some inconsequential object in the other direction. $8 a week or $1 million a year, what is the difference? A mathematician or a wit would give you the wrong answer. The Magi brought valuable gifts, but that was not among them. This dark assertion will be illuminated later on. Jim drew a package from his overcoat pocket and threw it upon the table.
Don't make any mistake, Dell.
He said.
About me. I don't think there's anything in the way of a haircut or a shave or a shampoo that could make me like my girl any less. But if you'll unwrap that package, you may see why you had me going a while at first.
White fingers and nimble tore at the string and paper. And then an ecstatic scream of joy, and then, alas, a quick feminine change to hysterical tears and wails, necessitating the immediate employment of all the comforting powers of the Lord of the Flat. For there lay the set of combs, side and back, that Della had worshipped long in a Broadway window. Beautiful combs, pure tortoise shell, with jeweled rims just the shade to wear in the beautiful vanished hair. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers, but the tresses that should have adorned the coveted adornments were gone. But she hugged them to her bosom, and at length she was able to look up with dim eyes and a smile and say,
"My hair grows so fast, Jim."
And then Della leaped up like a little singed cat and cried.
"Oh, oh!"
Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him eagerly upon her open palm. The dull precious metal seemed to flash with a reflection of her bright and ardent spirit.
"Isn't it a dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it."
Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch and put his hands under the back of his head and smiled.
Dell,
said he,
let's put our Christmas presents away and keep 'em a while. They're too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs. And now suppose you put the chops on.
The Magi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones, possibly bearing the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicle of two foolish children in a flat who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But in a last word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these two were the wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are wisest. Everywhere they are wisest. They are the Magi.